The first thing that hit me that morning was the silence. My house always had a hum. The fridge, the old clock in the hallway, the whisper of wind through the maple out front. But that day it all felt still. I was standing in my kitchen, halfway through my first cup of coffee, when I noticed it. The garage door, wide open. At first, I thought maybe the wind caught it, or maybe I'd hit the remote by accident. But then the cold coffee in my hand told me the truth. Something was wrong. Dennis never ever left that door open. Not once in 43 years. Even after he passed 8 months ago. I couldn't bring myself to change a single habit he left behind. I set the mug down, pushed open the back door, and walked out barefoot in my old slippers. The morning air was warmer than it should have been for April. The kind that makes you believe spring is trying to start over again. The smell of fresh grass, motor oil, and the faint tang of rain drifted through the yard. And then I saw it. Or rather, I saw what wasn't there. That empty space on the garage floor where Dennis's car used to sit. His pride, his project, his whole damn heart. The 67 Shelby GT500 he'd spent 20 years restoring, piece by piece. Gone. It felt like the breath got sucked right out of me. The oil stain on the floor looked darker somehow, like a scar left behind. I put my hand on the door frame to steady myself. No, 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 I whispered, like saying it might change what I was seeing. His workbench was still neat as always. The tools hanging just how he liked. Outlines on the pegboard. The red toolbox shut tight. His journal sat open, pages full of those small, careful letters. The last entry was 3 weeks before he died. Almost done. Can't wait to teach Evelyn to drive her properly. Road trip next summer. My throat closed up. The smell of oil and orange hand soap hit me so hard it brought tears to my eyes. For a second, I swear I could hear him humming along to some old Creedence song, the one he'd play on that busted-up radio when he thought I wasn't listening. Then the crunch of tires on the driveway snapped me back. A black BMW. My son's car. Brian climbed out. Same nervous stance he had as a kid when he knew he'd done something wrong. His wife Vanessa followed, looking perfect as ever. Straight hair, big shades, high-end everything. Even from across the yard, I could feel her judging me. "Mom," Brian started, voice tight. "Where's the car?" I asked, before he could say another word. He shoved his hands into his pockets. "That's what I came to talk to you about." "Where is it?" He exhaled, couldn't look at me. I sold it. For a heartbeat I thought I heard him wrong. The words didn't make sense. Like hearing static on a channel that used to play your favorite song. "You, what?" "I sold it yesterday," he said quickly. "I needed the money. Vanessa's got this Paris trip coming up. Huge opportunity for her business. I couldn't let her down. I felt my pulse in my temples. That was your father's car, Brian. It was just sitting there," he shot back. "Dad's gone, Mom. You don't even drive it." Was. Past tense. That word hurt worse than anything. "You got 15,000 for it," he added. Like it was some kind of consolation prize. 15,000. For something Dennis built with his own 2 hands over 2 decades. I crossed my arms to keep them from shaking. "When did you take it?" "Yesterday afternoon. You were at the store." He still had his old house key. I never asked for it back. Before I could answer, Vanessa came strolling up the driveway, sunglasses glinting like armor. "Carol?" "Oh, wait," she said. forcing a laugh. Evelyn, we're not doing this again, okay? The car's sold. We leave for Paris tomorrow. Her tone was sugar sweet and poison cold all at once. This is between me and my son, I said. I'm his wife, she replied smoothly. What's between you and him is between all of us now. I wanted to scream, but instead, I just stared. First at her manicured hand gripping Brian's arm, then at the way he wouldn't meet my eyes. She smiled like it was a photo op. We'll send you pictures from Paris. You'd love it there. So romantic. My jaw clenched. Romantic. For her, maybe. For me, it was a reminder of every promise Dennis and I never got to keep. Brian mumbled, "We should go. Gotta pack." "Yeah," she said, tugging him toward the car. "We have an early flight." He looked back just once, just long enough for me to see the guilt flicker across his face. Then they were gone. When the BMW turned the corner and disappeared, the silence hit again, heavier this time. I stood in that empty garage, surrounded by ghosts, his coffee mug on the shelf, the smell of him still hanging in the air, and that hollow spot on the floor like a missing heartbeat. I locked the garage, went inside, sat at the kitchen table with his journal open. My coffee was cold again. I didn't even realize I'd been crying until the phone rang. AM, unknown number. Normally, I don't answer those, but something in me said pick up. "Hello." "Mrs. Parker," a man's voice asked, rough, shaky. "This is Tom Graves from Graves Classic Auto. I have your husband's car." I froze. "You what?" "Your son brought it in Wednesday," he said. "But ma'am, there's something Dennis wanted you to know. Something he left for you. Can you come down here now?" My mind was spinning. "Dennis left something." Tom's voice cracked. "He was my friend. Your husband saved my life 25 years ago. I should have told you sooner, but please, Mrs. Parker, it's important." I didn't even bother changing out of my sweater. Drove across town with my hands gripping the wheel so tight they hurt. Graves Classic. Auto sat at the end of a long concrete strip. Shiny glass windows. Rows of restored cars gleaming in the sunlight. A man waited by the door. Grey hair, watery eyes. "Mrs. Parker," he said, stepping forward. "I'm Tom Graves." He told me how Dennis co-signed a business loan for him decades ago, when nobody else would. "Your husband believed in me before I believed in myself," Tom said, voice breaking. "This place exists because of him." I swallowed hard. He never told me that. "Of course he didn't," Tom said softly. "That's who he was." Then he said something that stopped my heart. "When your son brought that Shelby in, I recognized it right away. Dennis talked about that car like it was a member of the family. I offered Brian a fair price, but he had no idea what he was selling." My stomach dropped. "How much is it worth?" Tom met my eyes. "Around 180,000. Museum quality restoration. One of only 2,000 ever made. 180,000. My knees went weak. I sat right down on the curb outside his shop, staring at the pavement. Tom sat beside me. I paid him the 15 he asked for, but that car was never mine to keep. "Then why tell me?" I whispered. He took a deep breath. "Because Dennis made me promise 2 years ago. Said if anything ever happened to him, I'd know what to do. Come with me. There's something you need to see." We walked through spotless white floors and chrome reflections until we reached the back garage. 3 cars sat under covers. Tom stopped at the last one and pulled the cover away. and there she was. Burgundy paint glinting under the lights, chrome shining like morning sun on water. I walked to her slowly, fingertips tracing the hood. My eyes burned. I could feel Dennis in every line of that car. Tom leaned on the doorway. He asked me to install a hidden compartment 2 years ago. Said it was for you. Said you'd know what to do when you found it. My heart was pounding in my throat. Where? He pointed under the dashboard. Behind the radio. Press here, pull there. He showed me. Made me swear never to open it. He left me alone with the car. My hands trembled as I pressed the panel. It clicked loose. Behind it, a small hidden space. Inside, a manila folder, a sealed envelope with my name in Dennis's handwriting, and a tiny wooden box with a key inside. I opened the letter first. Evelyn, if you're reading this, I'm gone. His handwriting danced across the page, every loop and line familiar. He said he'd been investigating Vanessa, that her real name was Vanessa Cortland, and she'd done this before, twice. Married men, with aging parents, drained family assets, vanished. He warned that she'd target our house next. He told me about a safe deposit key in the box, about stock certificates he'd hidden for my security, about Tom being the one I could trust. And he ended with, protect yourself. Protect our son. He's a victim in this too. I love you. I'm still protecting you. I pressed the letter to my chest, tears streaming. In that moment, I knew Dennis wasn't just gone. He'd left a mission. I opened the manila folder. Photos of Vanessa. Different hair, different towns. 2 wedding pictures with 2 different men. Marriage certificates, news clippings, victims. Everything Dennis had uncovered. I sank into the driver's seat of his car and sobbed until my hands shook. He'd known she was dangerous. He'd been fighting to protect us, even as he was dying. Tom came back quietly, stood by the door. He told me to call you if your son ever sold this car. Said, that meant it was time. I nodded slowly, still clutching the file. She's not gonna get away with this. Tom's voice was steady. Then let's finish what Dennis started, before I tell you what happened next. Before the part where I called those men and learned who Vanessa really was. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because what I found next didn't just change my life. It nearly ended it. I didn't sleep that night. Dennis's letter sat on the kitchen table, the edges worn soft from my hands. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his handwriting. The words protect our son. It felt like he was still in the room, whispering instructions I could barely understand. By sunrise, I had a plan. First stop, Tom's office. He brewed the kind of bitter coffee that could strip paint, but I drank 2 cups anyway, just to stay upright. You sure you're ready for this, Evelyn? He asked. I've been ready since the minute she smiled in my face and sold my husband's soul for a plane ticket, I said. Tom slid a notepad toward me. Dennis mentioned 2 men, Stanley Wright and George Murphy. He wanted you to call them if anything ever happened. I stared at those names, strangers who somehow held pieces of the same nightmare. My palms were sweating as I picked up the phone. The first call rang 3 times. Hello? A man's voice answered. Older. Tired? Mr. Wright, my name's Evelyn Parker. I think we have something in common. A woman named Vanessa Cortland. Long silence, then a sigh that sounded like years of regret. I wondered when someone would call about her. He told me everything. How Vanessa swept into his life after his wife died. How she made him believe he was healing, only to convince him his aging mother needed to sell her home for care. 2 weeks after the sale, Vanessa vanished with every dime. His mother died 6 months later, broken-hearted in a facility she never needed. "I don't know what she's told your son," he said, voice trembling, "but she'll start slow, make you look forgetful, sick. Then she'll use him to take everything you own." By the time he finished, my hands were shaking so bad, I almost dropped the phone. "Thank you," I whispered. "I'll stop her. I swear I will." Tom stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "You good?" I nodded, though I wasn't, not even close. The second call was worse. George Murphy answered on the first ring, his voice rough like he hadn't spoken to anyone in a while. His story matched almost word for word. Different town, same con. She'd even used the same fake name. "She's poison, Mrs. Parker," he said. "She studies families before she walks through the door. You're probably already part of her script." When I hung up, I sat there staring at the receiver. 2 men, 2 ruined families. And now she had her sights set on mine. Tom handed me a card. Dennis's friend, Peter Coleman, private investigator. He helped Dennis gather evidence before he passed. I met Peter the next morning, in a diner that smelled like burnt toast and old coffee. He looks like every detective you've ever seen on TV. Gray at the temples, eyes that miss nothing. "Your husband was one hell of a man," he said. "Smart, patient. He knew Vanessa, or whatever her name really is, was dangerous. He just didn't have enough proof to convince your son." He opened a folder. "Now we do." Inside were credit card records, travel receipts, fake IDs, 3 different aliases, all tied to Vanessa's photo, and something else, debt in Brian's name, tens of thousands he didn't even know about. "She's setting him up," Peter said. "Once the bills hit, she'll spin a story about bad investments, blame you for financial stress, then convince him to sell your house." I gripped the edge of the table. "Not my house. Not again." Peter leaned forward. "We can't go to the police yet. Technically, she hasn't committed a crime here. But we can make sure she can't finish what she started." Before he left, he handed me a small recorder. "Document everything, every conversation, every comment. She'll try to make you look unstable. Don't give her the chance." That night, I sat at my kitchen table, listing every strange thing she'd said the past few months, asking about my will, taking pictures of the house for redecorating ideas, slipping brochures for retirement homes into her purse. It all added up to one ugly picture. Halfway through writing, I caught myself smiling, a bitter, proud smile. Dennis had prepared me for this moment. He'd left me the pieces. All I had to do was put them together, and if you're still watching, don't scroll just yet, because what came next proved that evil doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it wears lipstick and calls you Mom. 3 weeks later, they came back from Paris, tanned, smiling, looking like a magazine ad for heartbreak waiting to happen. I'd invited them to dinner, pot roast, mashed potatoes, the whole comfort food spread. Brian's favorite since he was 12. Vanessa floated through the doorway, perfume thick enough to make me dizzy. "Evelyn, this looks lovely," she said, already pulling out her phone to film the table. "I'm posting this. Everyone back home loved my Paris stories." "Sit," I said, trying to keep my voice even. Food's getting cold. She talked non-stop through dinner. Paris this, Paris that, networking, opportunities. And then, like dropping a knife in conversation, she said, "You know, this house is really too big for one person. Have you thought about downsizing?" I stabbed my fork into a carrot. "I manage just fine." She smiled sweetly. "Of course you do. But we worry, don't we, Brian? All those stairs." He nodded, eyes on his plate. "Mom, maybe a smaller place would be easier." It took everything in me not to scream. The woman had been back in town 10 minutes, and she was already planting seeds. After dessert, she excused herself to find the bathroom. I waited a minute, then followed. She wasn't in the bathroom. She was in Dennis's old office, rifling through drawers. "What are you doing?" I asked. She jumped. "Oh, I got lost," she said with that fake laugh. "So many rooms." "The bathroom's downstairs," I said flatly. She brushed past me, smile never faltering. Silly me. Must be the jet lag. That night, I wrote down every detail. Her words, her movements, the way she looked when she lied. My hand cramped, but I kept writing. I was building a case now, not just surviving. The next morning, I called Brian. "Come by the house," I said. "Alone. It's about your father." He hesitated. "Vanessa and I don't keep secrets, Mom." "This one's not hers to keep." He came that afternoon. Looked nervous, defensive. I had Dennis's letter and the investigation file laid out on the table. "If this is about the car again," he started. "Sit down," I said. "And listen." He did. I handed him Dennis's letter. Watched the color drain from his face as he read about Vanessa's lies, her fake names, the men she'd destroyed. "This is crazy," he said. "You can't believe this." "Then call them," I said quietly. "Their numbers are right there." He stared at the paper, then crumpled it. "I'm not doing this." "Brian, please. Your father died trying to protect you." He slammed the door on his way out. The sound echoed through the house long after he was gone. I called Peter that night. "He won't believe me." "He will," Peter said. "But it has to be his choice. Sometimes people have to bleed before they see who's holding the knife." At midnight, my phone rang. Brian's name. My heart stopped. "Mom?" His voice cracked. I called them. Both of them. I gripped the phone. And they said everything. The houses, the money. It's all the same story. He was crying now. I tested her. Asked where she grew up, what her maiden name was. Her answers were different. Completely different. When I confronted her about the credit cards, she changed. Like a mask came off. She packed a bag and left. "She's gone. She's running." I whispered. "Stay put. I'm calling Peter." Peter answered on the first ring. "I'm already tracking her. She's been pulling cash from ATMs for 2 hours. Flight booked. Mexico City, 6 a.m. Can the police stop her?" Not yet. But with Brian's statement, we can. Tell him to meet me. At 3 in the morning, Peter's car pulled up in front of my house. Brian looked destroyed. Red eyes, shaking hands. He sat at the table where his father's letter still lay. "This is my fault," he said. "I sold Dad's car. I didn't listen. I touched his hand. She fooled all of us, even your father for a while. But we're finishing what he started." Peter spread out the paperwork. "We take this to the airport. Detectives will be waiting. Once she checks in, they'll move." The drive was quiet. the streets empty under the orange glow of streetlights. I reached back and squeezed Brian's hand. "You're not alone in this, sweetheart." The airport smelled like coffee and disinfectant. Peter positioned us near security, out of sight but close enough to see everything. 2 detectives waited nearby, pretending to scroll their phones. At 5:30 a.m., she appeared, perfect as ever, designer coat, sunglasses, 2 suitcases full of stolen dreams. She looked calm, like she was walking into another life. One detective stepped forward. "Ma'am, we need to speak with you." She froze, eyes darting. "Is there a problem, officer?" "Linda Marsh," he said, showing his badge. "You're under arrest." For a second, her smile wavered. Then she ran, dropped her luggage, kicked off her heels, sprinted across the terminal. Security tackled her 20 feet later. The entire airport stopped to watch. When they dragged her up, she saw us, me and Brian standing together. Her face twisted into something feral. "You!" she screamed, struggling against the cuffs. "You ruined everything." She lunged, but the officers held her tight. 3 years wasted," she shrieked. "You should have died already." I didn't flinch, just took Brian's hand and squeezed. As they pulled her away, I whispered, "Not this time." And before I tell you how it all ended, how justice finally caught up with her and how my son and I started putting the pieces back together, make sure you tap that subscribe button and hit the bell, because part 3 is where the truth finally comes home. And so does Dennis's car. 2 weeks after the arrest, I walked into the police station with Brian. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The air smelled like old coffee and paper files. Detective Ramirez met us at the door, his smile soft but tired. "Mrs. Parker," he said, "we've confirmed everything. Her real name's Linda Marsh. She's wanted in 2 other states. Fraud, identity theft, elder exploitation. You and your husband stopped a professional." I exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. Brian sat beside me, shoulders slumped, eyes still swollen from too many sleepless nights. "She'll do time?" he asked. "Plenty," the detective said. 12 to 15 years, maybe more. We've got statements from other victims now that she's caught. The case is airtight. When we left the station, the cold spring air hit us hard. Brian didn't say much on the drive home. I didn't push. Some wounds don't bleed on the outside. That night, he knocked on my bedroom door. "Mom?" I looked up from Dennis's journal. "Yeah, baby." He stood there, looking younger than he had in decades. "Can I stay here a while, just till I figure things out?" "Of course," I said. "Your room's just like you left it." That room was a time capsule. Football trophies, old posters, and the faint smell of engine grease from when Dennis used to help him fix his first car. Seeing him sleep there again made the house feel less empty. For weeks, we moved carefully around each other. Some days Brian helped with chores or cooked breakfast. Other days he barely came out. I knew that look. Shame mixed with grief. I'd seen it on too many faces in the ICU. Healing isn't straight. It zigzags. 2 months later, the prosecutor called. Linda, no, Vanessa, had taken a plea deal. 12 years in federal prison. Minimum. I hung up the phone and just stood there, staring at Dennis's picture on the wall. "We did it," I whispered. "You can rest now." Brian came into the kitchen just then, and I told him. He nodded quietly. "Good." Then he turned and walked straight into the garage. When I followed, He was sitting on Dennis's old work stool, the journal open in his lap, tears streaking down his cheeks. "I found this," he said. "Look." He turned the page toward me. Dennis's handwriting, so neat and steady, taught Brian to change the oil today. He's 12, hands still small but careful. "I'm proud of him." Brian's voice cracked. "I don't remember that day. I wish I did." He flipped to another entry. Brian came by to help with the rebuild. "We didn't talk much. Didn't need to. These are the days I'll remember." He swallowed hard. "He loved me so much, and I treated him like—" His voice broke. "I sold the car he spent his life building. For her." I walked over, put my hand on his shoulder. "He never blamed you. He knew what she was. He was just trying to protect you." Brian shook his head, covering his eyes. "I didn't listen." "Then listen now," I said softly, handing him Dennis's last letter. The one about needing proof, before telling him the truth. He read it slowly, lips trembling. When he reached the line, "You're a victim too, son. I love you," he broke completely. I wrapped my arms around him, like I used to when he was a little boy, crying over scraped knees. Only this wound was deeper. We stayed in that garage for hours, surrounded by the smell of oil and old leather and the weight of everything Dennis left behind. A week later, a low rumble shook the quiet morning. I looked out the kitchen window and froze. There, pulling into the driveway, was Dennis's Shelby. Burgundy, polished, perfect. Tom Graves was behind the wheel, grinning like a man who'd kept a sacred promise. Brian came running down the stairs. "Is that—" I nodded, tears blurring my vision. "It's her." Tom got out, jingled the keys in his hand. "Thought she should come home." I stepped onto the porch, my heart racing. "Tom, you paid Brian for this car." "I can't." He shook his head. "This car isn't about money, Evelyn. It's about family. Dennis built it for you both. He'd want it here." Brian couldn't move. He just stared at the car like it was a ghost. "I don't deserve this," he whispered. Tom smiled. "Your dad thought you did. That's enough." We opened the garage door together. The oil stain was still there, waiting. Tom backed the Shelby into place. The engine shut off, and suddenly everything felt right again. The smell, the stillness, the sound of Dennis's legacy breathing in that space. Tom turned to me. "He'd be proud, you know. You protected your family." Then he looked at Brian. "And he'd be proud of you for coming back." When he left, Brian and I stood there staring at the car. I ran my fingers along the hood, cool and smooth. "Welcome home," I whispered. The next morning, Brian brought Dennis's journal into the garage. "We should take care of her," he said. "The way Dad wanted." I smiled. "Then let's start." He flipped to the page where Dennis had written, "Start with the oil. Check it first every time. Before you drive her, know she's ready." We followed it step by step, checking fluids, tightening bolts, making notes in the margin like Dennis used to. The work was slow, but it was healing. Every turn of a wrench felt like stitching something back together. By noon, Brian was grinning for the first time in months. I forgot how good this feels. Working with my hands, with purpose. "You got that from your father," I said. He laughed quietly. Guess I finally understand why he loved this car so much. We closed the hood together, side by side. A few weeks later, I stood in the garage, the morning light spilling across the Shelby's burgundy paint. "You ready?" I asked. Brian grinned. You sure you want to drive first? Oh, honey, I said, sliding into the driver's seat. I've waited 20 years for this. The leather was cool beneath me, the steering wheel worn where Dennis's hands had rested. I turned the key, and the engine came alive. Deep, steady, powerful. I could almost feel Dennis beside me, his smile in the rearview mirror. We rolled down Oakwood Drive, windows open, air warm against my face. The world looked the same, but it felt brand new. Brian laughed. That deep, unguarded laugh I hadn't heard since he was a kid. Dad would lose his mind right now. Yeah, I said, smiling through tears. He probably is. We drove with no destination. Past the hospital where I'd worked 40 years. Past the high school where Brian played football. Through the streets that held our whole lives. When we finally pulled back into the driveway, I shut off the engine and just sat there, listening to the quiet hum, fading into peace. This feels like closure, Brian said softly. It's a beginning, I said. The road trip Dennis promised me, I think it's time we take it. Brian looked at me, eyes bright. You serious? Dead serious, I said with a grin. And this time I'm driving first, he laughed, shaking his head. Guess we better change the oil again, huh? That night, as the sun dipped behind the trees, I stood at the kitchen window watching the garage. The Shelby sat in her spot, lights reflecting off her paint. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. Dennis had kept his promise. He'd protected me, even after he was gone, and somehow he'd brought our son back home. So, that's my story. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. I hope you never underestimate how far love can reach, even from the other side. And before you go, don't forget to hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. And subscribe for more stories that prove it's never too late to start over. Because sometimes, the best chapters come after goodbye.